Welcome to the MMHP and the 989. Podcasting from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in downtown Bay City. Channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. From the city by the bay. And now, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
Here at the MMHP and the 989, getting ready for part 2 with Mr. Steve Lyman from SRC. We want to thank all of you listeners for the great feedback. This episode, part 1, has been a tremendous hit with you all. We've touched on rock royalty here and some of the greatest songwriting and spacious psychedelic rock to come out of that late 60s, early 70s era. And Steve had a heavy hand in it. And in this part 2 here, he continues to take us into the workings of the first 2 records with SRC, as well as touching upon Peter Gabriel's interview on how it influenced Genesis, partying down with Traffic and Procol Harum. Takes us into the guitar, the teardrop guitar of his that was pretty iconic, and leads us into the reunions that came in later years. So without further ado, jump right back in here with Steve Lyman from SRC.
How about Black Sheep? That was the big hit.
You wrote that one, didn't you?
I
thought I read about that.
Glenn Quackenbush, more than anybody, wrote Black Sheep. This is kind of a funny story, is when we first started trying to practice Black Sheep, Glenn had the basic musical idea. Glenn had already written what would be Gary Quackenbush's guitar solo on the organ. And we started practicing it, and Glenn said, okay, this is what you got to play this. Da, 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 and hold that note out if you can. And and Gary Quackenbush, he balked at the whole idea. He says, that's not a damn guitar solo. Because he wanted to play, fast things like Lonnie Mack or Freddie King and stuff like that. He said, that's not a guitar solo. And what I remember in the room, I was kind of laughing, and people in the other people, band members in the room, kind of said to Gary, "Just shut up and play it. just shut up and play it, and see if you can make it your own." And in the end. That became like a signature thing for him.
Really? Yes.
But he didn't even want to play it at first. He said, oh, bullshit, I'm not playing that. It's not a guitar solo.
How about the lyrics to that? That was also sort of like almost like a questing kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that runs throughout the whole album.
Yeah.
The day you remember forever. Let's digest these words, because that's what the album opens. Okay, the day you remember forever. Now, people might say, what does remember forever mean? Well, what that means is sort of like a cosmic consciousness, where if you can remember forever, that means you remember everything all the way into the past and all the way into the future. And not even a teardrop could make all the noise stop, like all the clutter of the world. For all of the small days, the trivia of life.
Right.
For this is, as always, no more than a black sheep could say.
Yeah, I mean that.
Yeah, and
it's such a great album. I tell you.
And at the end of the song, I'm not going to go through all the words, but the very last line of the song, before Gary does his guitar solo that just like slowly fades into infinity, that says, inside, outside, start to finish. That means like inside your body while you're here, and outside in the world around you, start to finish this quest.
So who came up with this? Did you guys do this all together? Or?
Well, by far it was mostly Scott. Now, and that's the thing, that the best contribution that Scott made to the band was he had all these wild, crazy ideas, and he wanted to put those into poetic things for the music.
Yeah, and the band delivered the goods on the music. It just fit those lyrics so well. I've just
Hearing these words from you, it totally explains why Peter Gabriel and early Genesis loved SRC.
Oh,
Because that was exactly what they used for
well, that's something that I can't think of the person's name. Somebody told me at a party once in Ann Arbor that he walked up to me at this party and says, "Did you ever see what Peter Gabriel said about SRC?" And I said, "What?" Yeah, bullshit, you know. He says, "No, he was interviewed once, and I eventually, after quite a few years, I came across the interview, and I don't know if it was during the Trespass album or whatever, but it was very early when you know, long before Phil Collins became their main singer. And
sure.
all that. But they were holed up in a cottage somewhere out in the country in England. And these people, Peter Gabriel and Mike Rutherford, or who's all the people? Tony Banks,
Yeah.
and Phil Collins, they didn't even have a record player. But the guy that owned the cottage where they were staying had a record player. So, and he had some albums there, and they got hooked into listening to the King Crimson debut album, Procol Harum's album, and this album by this group from United States called SRC. And so I I've never talked to Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, I had
can't
wondered
say
if
anything
maybe
about it.
he had heard it through John Peel, who was
that
an
might have had-
influential DJ who was
Yeah.
a big booster of
Well,
SRC
this
in England.
another amusing story about Black Sheep. When the Traffic played at Grandy Ballroom for the first time, we got them to come over to our house afterwards. And at that point in time, this is sometime in the summer of '68.
Traffic, you're saying?
Traffic.
So it'll be the original one with Dave Mason then.
Dave Mason had left the band,
Just
so
left it,
so
okay.
all it was Chris Wood, Steve Winwood,
Jim
and
Capaldi.
Jim Capaldi. Okay.
It's one of my
They-
favorite bands.
Okay, they
Oh,
came
yeah,
over
they're
to
great.
they came over to our house, and we were sitting around, and just and talking and having a good time, and and when you think about it, like Steve Winwood or Jim Capaldi, they're probably fascinated too, because they've probably never been to the United States, and
That'd probably be their first tour.
yeah, it might have been their first tour over
Yeah.
here, and
In Traffic, anyway.
yeah, in Traffic, yeah. So we were sitting around talking and everything, and they knew that we were a band, and we told them that we got something we want you to listen to. And we had the final tape just the way it was going on the album, back from the mastering. We had it on a reel-to-reel, so we put the reel-to-reel on, and here we are. There's smoke, and we could see each other's auras and whatever. Anyway, we started the song, and it started right at the beginning with Black Sheep. And we had, had the speakers, had it up loud enough where it wasn't blowing our ears off, but you could really hear it. And after Black Sheep's ended with Gary's guitar solo just really very slowly fading out, at the end of it, I looked over at Steve Winwood, and he was kind of crouched down on these couches that we had that were right down near the floor, and he was leaning forward, and he went, "Wow, let me hear that again." And all of our eyes lit up. Wow. and then we said, "No, there's more coming." And then we proceeded to play through the whole album. And I can't remember what happened after that, but just that first thing where he went, "Wow, let me hear that again." So for all I know, and this is it's speculation, but for all I know, some of the people that we met, like the Who, or then maybe went back to England and says, "Hey, there's this band from Ann Arbor, the town in Michigan, called SRC, and it's kind of interesting. You know, Pete Townsend might have said something to someone, and I'm sure that when Jim Capaldi and Chris Wood and Steve Winwood, you know, probably told some people about it, and maybe that led to John Peel playing the album, or maybe it was a combination of different things.
Yeah. Wow.
Incredible.
But
Did you guys play with Traffic on that bill?
no.
How did that end up? How did they end up at your house?
Well, they were at the Grandy, right?
They were at the Grandy, and you know, it might have been Scot Richardson, because he was more aggressive in terms of, like, if you wanted to connect with somebody, you wanted to talk to him. Like where I was a little more timid. Like I really enjoyed the music, but I'm not going to put myself in your face and say, "Hey, come over to our house. We got something really cool to show you." so I'm not really sure how that came about, but we ended up with Procol Harum was at our house. At least twice, maybe 3 or 4 times. In fact, we even recorded with them in our practice room. We recorded 4 songs with them.
Whoa, you wouldn't happen to still have that recording?
I don't know
around.
whatever's happened. I don't know what's happened to it. And
Wow.
and we were just, I mean, we were laughing and goofing around. And the one song that I remember doing was the Bee Gees song, "Gotta Get a Message to You."
Okay.
And Gary Brooker was playing it on the piano, and he had a microphone, and he was singing it. Glenn Quackenbush was on the B3. I think E.G. was playing the drums. I'm not sure, either him or BJ. And
Was this when Trower was in Procol?
yeah, when Trower was in Procol, Trower wasn't playing. He might have been just standing in the room watching, and I was standing next to the upright piano with Matthew Fisher, their organ player, and we were when Gary Brooker was singing the lead, we were doing those background things, hold on, in harmony with each other, and but the funniest thing is that Gary Brooker didn't know all the words of the song, so he was making up words as he went along, but being that I eventually was out of the band in '69, so I don't know whatever happened to these, but I think Gary Quackenbush held on to these tapes for a while, and I don't know whatever happened to them. They were on reel-to-reel tapes.
Was that on that 4-track that you guys got from that one studio?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we probably recorded it onto that, and
unreal.
then mix it down onto 1/4-inch tape.
The Lost Sessions.
Yeah. So, that's another thing later. The people that are aware of the SRC album that got released on CD called Lost Masters.
Yeah, right.
What that was, and this is after I was notably after I was out of the band. I mean, it was even after Traveler's Tale was done. The Capitol Records dropped the band for one reason or another, and maybe there might have been some arguments between the band, and Capitol said, "Hey, we're not putting up."
Yeah, but Traveler's Tale didn't do that well.
Yeah, I
right?
know.
That might have been
that might have been part of the catalyst.
Yeah.
The fact that third album kind of bombed compared to the other two. But SRC, in the meantime, had built a studio on Morgan Road, on the southeast side of.
At the dead end.
Yeah, the dead end right by US 23,
Right.
southeast side of Ann Arbor, and they had got a full recording thing where they could do a whole album, mix it down and everything, master it there, and so that was they called that the Morgan Sound Studio, and I was only there once. I got invited out there. Even though I'd been out of the band for 2 years or so, I got invited out there when they had a grand opening party for the place.
Okay.
And Arthur Penhowell from WAVX was there, and a lot of other people that were trying to
Well,
get
let's
on
go
the-
back though. After you released the the debut, the SRC, it did chart, right? It did get on the Billboard Top 200.
That I'm not actually sure if that. I think it did, but I'm not actually sure.
I'm pretty
of that.
sure it charted. It wasn't as big as Milestones,
but I think in the long run, the debut album SRC probably sold as well as Milestones, but it was spread out more because some people that got turned on to Milestones, they got another album, and they went out and bought that.
Which one was Bolero on?
That was on Milestones.
That was on Milestones, even though, as I told you before, we had been using that song. We had been using that song as a set closer ever since possibly as early as the spring of 1968, even back when Robindale was before the first album came out. So it wasn't until we released the first album and then Capitol wanted a second album, we thought, well, let's put that In the Hall of the Mountain King with Beck's Bolero on there. And for all the people that confuse their classic music, it's not Ravel's Bolero. It's Beck's Bolero, even though it doesn't say it on the album. It's Beck's Bolero, and it was either written by Jimmy Page or it might have been written by Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck together. Mm-hmm. But In the Hall of the Mountain King was by Edvard Grieg, Norwegian composer, back, I don't know, around beginning of the 1900s or so, maybe before World War I or whatever. Anyway, it was from a thing called the Peer Gynt Suite. And somebody brought the classical music album over to our house one time. So this would have been probably in the early part of '68. Brought it over to our house, and we all listened really carefully to that album to see if how that classical music would affect us. And the first thing that I thought of is back when I was, maybe in my early childhood years, not early childhood, maybe like in 6th grade or so, there was a TV production in black and white. Of course, it was all black and white back then. The Pied Piper story.
Oh, okay.
A special TV production to it, and what they used in the TV production was bum 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 bum, and where it climaxes at the end, bum 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 bum. At that point, the rats are all jumping off the cliff into the ocean. Right. Yeah. So when SRC was listening to this, I remember that thing. I remember that from that show, and somebody in the band, maybe Scot Richardson, said, "You think we could do that?" I said, "Yeah, we could do that, but I can figure that out." So between Glenn Quackenbush and me, primarily, we figured out, and it's really not that complicated of a melody, but
But then
a
to
crowd
bring
pleaser.
Bolero in at the end, is just.
That was
that's really a nice combination.
I think I would credit Scot Richardson with that thing. After we
Him
mastered
and that tambourine.
Yeah. after we mastered how to play In the Hall of the Mountain King fairly well, and we hadn't performed it in public, I think it was Scott that might have said one day, "How about we go from that right into Beck's Bolero?" And he said, "Yeah, we'll try that."
Yeah.
So we and that ended up being what we would close our shows with.
Yeah.
And then another irony is that the thing that got us a lot of attention, that song, was not one that had any singing in it. It's just an instrumental. I mean, my instrumentals, my very past instrumentals would be like listening to Dwayne Eddy or the Ventures or something like that. As far as
Now, the first single from that album was Up All Night, right?
Up All Night with Turning Into Love, I think.
Yeah,
on
it
that.
was maybe on the
Yeah,
flip side.
but that didn't come out until, because I was out of the band about 2 months before the album actually got released, even though I was on, whatever, 90% of the album.
Okay. Do you want
And-
to talk about the circumstances of you leaving the band?
It's a lot of it's a blank spot. We were under pressure to come up with songs, and I think the band thought that I was one of the most musical people in the band, that I should be able to come up with ideas. And if you know how music creativity works, if you try to force it,
Yeah,
it
work.
doesn't work very well. And we were under pressure to get stuff. And one night after, I think it was a Grandee Ballroom performance, when we had a hash out in our kitchen, and it got violent. I mean, somebody told me later that E.G. Clausen smashed me in the mouth. I don't remember. If it was, it didn't hurt as much as the band falling apart.
Yeah.
And it's like I got booted out of the band. Or I don't know if they might, the other people might perceive it differently, but that's what it kind of came down to. And when I left in the band, I was just like stunned, like, wow, they're going to go on to possibly really make it big, and I was part of this, and I'm not going to be in it anymore. And it took several months before in my own head, where I thought, God, I'm kind of glad to be out of that, because I thought the place was turning into kind of a madhouse.
Well, it must have hurt because, Milestone's got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
A lot of radio play.
Yeah, and I wasn't in it when
Yeah,
they were promoting
right.
it.
And do you remember, I seem to remember that there was some controversy about Up All Night, that somebody, I don't know if it was a radio station, thought it was about drugs.
Yeah,
and
I
seemed
never
like-
heard much. I probably didn't hear any more
Yeah,
of that
I know.
than
You guys
did.
remember that?
And it might have just been some rumor that someone started or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even. So I don't.
Well,
really
I mean,
know.
Up All Night, I guess you could imply that it, that might have a drug
Yeah, like when you
reference.
say,
I mean,
I'm doing it up all night. Well, that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
necessarily mean you're
Yeah.
sticking in that needle. in
yeah,
your
could
arm.
have had a sexual meaning for all
It
that.
could be sexual.
Yeah,
It could be just that you're in euphoria because you're.
So were you involved in the writing of that song? Because that's a pretty good rock and roll
Yes.
song.
Here's something I kind of forgot for quite a few years is on that song. The only thing that I did on that song on the recording was the singing, the high harmony background vocal.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is the guitar that I was using, I had what they call flat wound strings, which don't have as much of a zing to them as the round wound strings, and Gary was frustrated because the tone that I was getting on my guitar when I was playing the chords wasn't the tone that he thought that should be there. So when we recorded it, he laid down the rhythm track, with his guitar set on full treble on the lead pickup, and then he did the guitar solo on an overdub. So the only thing that I actually did on that song is I stood with my hands in my pocket. And
Now, it was the guitar you're talking about. Is that the guitar you brought?
yes,
All right.
you want to see this?
Yes. I don't know. Did you guys see the guitar?
Not yet. No.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh,
Oh, that's amazing.
All right, I'll give it a go.
Teardrop.
Made by Herb David.
Okay. It started off, I think that Scot Richardson wanted me to be like the Brian Jones of SRC. So he thought I should have a teardrop looking guitar. Well, this is not really supposed to be a teardrop. What it is, the guitar body is a guitar to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Notice the similarity of shape?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the same thing with the inlays are like guitar picks, even though they kind of get squished when you get to the higher frets. And this guitar, I designed this guitar. My dad was an architect, so I was used to doing architectural type drawing, and had some training in school for that. And so I designed it. On a piece of paper, I had the whole thing designed exactly how I wanted it, and took it to Herb David Guitar Studios in Ann Arbor, and said, "Make me this." And they got the pickups as well as the electronics from Kalamazoo, where Gibson was still located. And this probably came off of some other guitar because it never was chrome shiny. And put Grover pegs on it. And this used to be a brighter green than what you see here. A little, I think
What year did you have that made?
this I designed it in the autumn of '67, or late summer, autumn, and it was probably finished around the time we were getting ready to record the first album. So this is what I used on the debut album. And Gary Quackenbush was using a black Les Paul custom.
Wow.
And
That is beautiful.
the only problem with, some of these controls are almost just like frozen, they won't turn. But the truss rod in here, no, it's under here. The truss rod under here is somehow jammed where you can't turn it.
It's maxed out.
But, I don't know. The neck stayed so straight for so long that there was never any problem. Now it's got a very slight. In order to get the strings down to where I would like them to be up here, it ends up buzzing down here.
Oh.
And you can usually correct that with a truss rod. But so I just hang on. I don't even use it anymore.
Yeah, we're just talking about the big concert. Well, of course, by the time this airs, the concert will have been over. But coming up in August the 5th with Scott and our good friend Bobby Balderrama and
Mike
of course
Brush.
Mike Brush, right? Everybody that's
Everybody
been on the show,
show.
right, including Larry. So yes, indeed, that's going to be quite the show.
So there's Bobby. I really like. God, I like that guy. Love that guy.
Yeah, he is. He
And-
got a good heart.
And
Bobby
yeah,
Balderrama?
Yes.
yeah,
yes, indeed.
and
Oh, yeah.
his wife Amy, she's a sweetheart too. And
Did you see that Bobby is going to be playing solo at
Tomorrow night,
Yes,
Nino's.
at Nino's Italian restaurant.
with
He can walk over
just
there.
by himself.
Just playing his guitar solo.
Really?
So
Oh,
yeah,
we
that'll
go
be
there
fun.
for that.
I'm definitely gonna.
Well,
we're gonna go and have dinner there.
we
That's a heck of a gig for him. He gets to walk across the street.
one time, not the last time, but the time maybe the time before that, where we went to see the Mysterians at Scotty's Sandbar. Bobby invited me to come up on stage and play along with him on a couple songs, and I just kind of picked songs I knew, but they actually did 96 Tears, and I have never played that before, so I had to really use my ears and pay attention to make sure that I wasn't screwing up. And he's a good person.
A few years ago, wasn't there a reunion of SRC? And
Well,
because I know Pete Andrews didn't want any part of it or something.
yeah, he probably didn't. Now I don't. This is something that I don't know, but there was a pretty serious falling out between the members of SRC and Pete Andrews several years after I was gone. So I
Okay.
don't really know what that entailed, but there was a lot of bitter feelings. And as far as reunions, there were some, I call them half-ass reunions done back in like 2003, 2004.
Wasn't there one at White's Bar here in Saginaw?
Yes.
Yeah, that was later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
but back in 2003 and 2004, we did a couple things, and it didn't even involve Scot Richardson because he didn't live anywhere around. He was either in California or he was down in Tennessee. and on one of them I did all the lead singing, but it was just a few things that were done, and I wasn't enthused about doing them, but I figured if they're going to try to do this, I better be there to help out. And so the one you're talking about, Fred, is in 2011 we played a show with Scot Richardson on lead vocals, all three guitar players, Ray Goodman, Gary Quackenbush and me, and Glenn Quackenbush, and E.G. Clausen had already passed from cancer back in 2003. So I think at that one, Pete Woodman played drums,
right.
Mm-hmm.
and we did it in the month of June. We did it in the month of June at the Magic Bag Theater in Ferndale, Michigan, which is just on the north edge of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a month or a month and a half later, we did the same show at White's Bar.
Yeah, and you had a nice poster there, and that was done by, was that Carl Lundgren who did the poster, or was that Gary Grimshaw?
I think it was Carl Lundgren, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that poster. I bought it at the show at White's, and we've got it in our apartment in New Jersey.
Oh,
So every
okay.
time we go in the door, we see the SRC reunion poster from White's Bar. It's cool.
And,
It's really a good one.
And then we did the same thing one more time the next year, but it was Ray Goodman was not in at that time. Plus, we had two female singers that were singing backup. That was, I think that was an effort to make it easier for Scott, to handle the singing by having some people that could sing with him, and that was it, except in 2017, the Detroit Music Awards, being that it was 50 years since we had I'm So Glad out, they wanted to give us the Lifetime Achievement Award.
And richly deserved.
So at that point, on that show, I was playing guitar and backup singing. Glenn Quackenbush was on the organ. Scot Richardson was in front, and Robin Dale was also there, but he lives in Taiwan. He just came over to the States at the time, and he got on stage and helped with the background vocals. And then we had the entire third power band.
Oh,
Drew Abbott on lead guitar, Jem Targill on bass, and Jim Craig on drums, backing us up. And we just did, and all they wanted was the one song. I mean, I would have loved to play Who Is That Girl or Black Sheep too, but they just wanted the one song. So we played that one song, got our award, and the audience went, "Hey, whatever."
yeah.
and that's probably going to be the last attempt to do anything together, because none of us really want to try to do that again. I mean, it'd be one thing just to, in each of us individually, if we wanted to try to do something musically, but to try to recreate something that was 55 years ago, it's pretty hard. And about half the band is no longer here in this world.
Right.
At least in the version of the band that was on Milestones. E.G. Clausen passed away. The bass player Al Wilmot passed away. Who else?
Gary Quackenbush.
Gary Quackenbush, yeah. Gary Quackenbush passed away in 2015.
And I remember seeing him about town. He was always dressed up in a suit.
Did he have purple socks on?
Yep. Yep.
That's mystic. That's mystical.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Let me throw out this. One of my favorite songs on Milestones is Checkmate. Did you have much to do with the writing of that one?
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Checkmate.
I gotta demonstrate something on that song. I'll just do this on an acoustic guitar. This is going to be a guitar lesson. okay, a lot of people would say, how did you play that riff that you played? You know, yeah. Well,
That's very memorable.
I'm the one that started that song because I knew that the chords E minor and D go good. So I look at the guitar and, well, this is an E string here, and the fourth string is a D string. So I thought, okay, what can I make a riff like that? Well, here's the E here. So what that song does, everything that is fretted on that song is on that part there is all done on the fifth string. And it's just alternating with the E string and the D string. Whoop.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
One
such
way
a
or
great
the other.
song.
That's I love that. That's
Yeah, it's it's funny telling someone that's a guitar player and said, how the heck did you play that? And I said, it's super simple, and that's all it is.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid, right?
Wait, since I got the guitar here, I'm just going to play a very short version of the song.
How about Who's That Girl?
Yeah,
You wrote that one with Scott.
Yeah.
Did you play that one?
But,
No.
I'm so glad, I'm so glad, I'm glad, I'm glad, I'm glad. I'm so glad, I'm so glad, I'm glad, I'm glad, I'm glad. I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. I'm tired of weeping, I'm tired of moaning, I'm tired of crying for you. And that's all I can play because I can't remember the words.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I'm so
Like that.
glad. I'm so glad. Right?
I'm so glad that's over.
Yeah, that was great. I appreciated you sharing that one with us.
So, what did you do upon the exit? Tell us where you headed into
this
the.
is-
Yeah.
I became a regular person again.
Yeah.
Just a regular person. I got a factory rat job because I had to have some money coming in, or I'm going to end up in the poorhouse.
Were you married?
Not right at the time, but so I worked at GM's Pontiac Truck and Coach, or GM Truck and Coach in Pontiac, and made UAW money out there, and then after about less than a year of that, I thought, God, I want to stay in a factory rat job all my life. So I'm going to go see the country. And I started hitchhiking around the country, went down to Florida, and then eventually out to California, and came back to Michigan, and then got married to my first wife in 1970. In the summer of 1970.
So when you were traveling around, but there was no music involved in that? You didn't travel with your guitar or
I
anything?
didn't travel with a guitar. If I was someplace where there was a guitar, I might pick it up and play it. In fact, now I don't know this for sure, but I wouldn't be at all surprised that when I was down in Gainesville, Florida, I went over to the campus one day, the college campus. It was like, a real nice day out, and there was some people sitting around, playing songs and stuff together, and there was one guy there that had kind of blonde hair, long hair. And who knows? It might have been Tom Petty. I don't know. I mean, this is before he, this is like 1969.
Oh, he probably would have been too young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
At
probably
that
more like
point.
Greg Allman.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know when was Tom Petty born?
Well, I remember he met Elvis Presley. That was one of those big events in his life. Elvis was shooting a movie in Florida called To Follow That Dream.
Yeah.
And he met him
Yeah,
on
man.
set, and that got him interested in getting Elvis records, and really
Oh, okay.
was maybe the key, for Tom Petty
Yeah,
to start.
I never
And
know. But
Gainesville was definitely Allman's area.
yeah,
too.
now let me tell you, that band, The Insiders,
I saw
shared
that
this.
last night.
Did you see that?
I was there. Yeah.
What did you think? Did you think
Wonderful.
they were really great?
Yeah, and Lauren was on keys. He's coming to be our guest here in a few weeks.
Okay.
Oh,
So yeah,
Yeah, they were, I thought, were just absolutely terrific.
it was wonderful last night.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got married in the summer of 1970, and my first wife and I had a son born in 71, another son in 73, and a daughter in 1978. Yeah, and they're all still here. They all live down by Chattanooga, but our marriage fell apart like a little bit more than halfway through the 1980s, and then. But at that time, I was working the job that I worked for like about almost 32 years, driving. It's a Teamster job, driving a car transporting truck, delivering new cars to dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you this afternoon, one time I did deliver to the dealer. What'd you say the one?
Well, we were thinking it might have been Dunlop Pontiac.
It was probably Dunlop Pontiac.
Oh, really?
Because we were talking about, you
Yeah.
trying to transform the showroom into
Yeah,
a
I delivered
venue.
it right in the heart of town here. And then I've all
And what year would have that been?
Oh God, I'd say it had to be. It might have been as long as 35 years ago.
So in the 80s. So.
Yeah, sometime in the mid 80s or no later than the latter
It would
80s.
have been Dunlops or Labadie's then.
It's probably Dunlop's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah.
then
And
I mean,
was it Pontiac's or?
I can't remember for sure, but it was probably Pontiac's.
Okay, that would.
But if Labadie is that the one on Euclid, or
It
did they
is
have
now,
a different
yeah.
location?
Yeah,
It
that
used to be downtown here.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they sold Oldsmobile.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I can't remember for sure, because even in later years, I delivered to the one on Euclid as well as the Toyota dealer up the street farther,
Yep.
as well as the Ford dealer that's up by Wilder Road,
Okay,
and
yeah.
the Chevy dealer that's a little bit
Graph.
Graph, yeah.
Chevrolet. So
Wow. Small world.
yeah, but and that's another thing about music is that's sad is people that are in the music business, unless they have a major success and put some money away wisely, yeah, they can have some struggles in their later years.
Mhm.
And I'm fortunate I had like 31 years there, so I got a pension. How many people don't even have any kind of a pension? So
Yeah,
so
pensions are disappearing.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have that,
Mhm.
and then my wife Eileen and we've been married since 2001.
So, yeah, you were saying that tomorrow, right? It's the 22nd
Yeah, tomorrow is
anniversary. I'm going to remind you again so you don't get into trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get my ass kicked. So,
Congratulations.
I'm going to tell you another story real quickly about the One Simple Task, because you brought that up. But One Simple Task, if you know the song, it's got all kinds of really bizarre timing changes in it. And what I remember is, this is always funny, like when we played it at the Grandie Ballroom at the beginning where it's going bum, 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 bum. You could see the whole audience going dun, 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 dun. And then when the timing changes, it all goes. So, but and that's part of the idea of that song, like doing, you have to do the impossible to get the keys to the to the universe or whatever.
The acid.
Didn't SRC play at the Delta Pop Festival?
If they did, it was probably after my time. I don't know when.
Okay, because that was.
I was on
69 or
yeah.
70.
If it was 69.
Because it was the MC5, the Rational. I mean,
Yeah, it probably
Well,
was.
they played also at the Saginaw Pop Festival. It was the same kind of lineup with Seeger, the Amboy Dukes, the MC5.
because I saw
Frost.
SRC many times.
Yeah.
Because and if it was at the time where you would be familiar with the Milestones album, I was definitely out because I was on about 90% of that album. But when it actually got released, I was already gone from the band. And my pictures on the back of the album has 6 faces on there. I mean, all the pictures of the band that existed after that were just 5 people because they just went with one guitar player.
Because at the Delta Pop Festival, that's where Iggy got banned for life. They fell right on my leg.
Yeah.
He picked up the dean's daughter. And
I think I heard something.
fell
about
out right
that.
on my leg. It made Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah.
My leg did.
Anyway, there's video of that on YouTube.
Really?
There is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, hey, Fred, your leg's
Oh,
popular.
wow.
Sir Fred's leg on YouTube.
But Peter Andrews, I guess, had something to do with Iggy. And he told him to put that girl down. That's the dean's daughter or something.
So, anyway, life goes on. So,
Did you do any recording after that? Have you have any records on your own?
Nothing professional at all. Just screwing around with people. Recording in their.
Helping them out on records and stuff?
I mean, not even. Like
Not
if
even
someone had a bunch of mics set up in a room and over in front of amplifiers and trying to had a tape recorder going, they might. But as far as a professional studio type recording, haven't done any.
Okay. No website or anything for
No.
for
No,
people to look
like
up?
I said at the beginning of this interview, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm not selling Amway, and I'm not.
Amway.
I'm not
Amway or
selling-
Amboy or
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming by. And
you still
Yeah.
play though.
Oh yeah, but not enough. If my wife Eileen will tell you, she'll tell you that I pick up a guitar like a couple times a month and play a couple Beatles songs and then put it away. And
Where do you live now?
okay, I-75. We're very, very close to I-75, about 30 miles north of the Ohio line.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
If you know that area down there at all, on the west side of I-75, just north of exit 29, there's a big Ford assembly plant where they make the Mustang.
Oh,
We're
okay.
right across the freeway from that, back in the woods a little bit.
Are you anywhere near Adrian, or is that?
That's Adrian is. I don't know how far that is from us. That might be about 60 miles away.
Oh,
or so.
it's a good
Yeah.
distance away. All right.
Yeah.
Are you having any plans of doing anything on your own before? Are you writing? Are you having material laying around or any demos?
Not really, but I haven't been very musically creative
Right.
since like 1969 and 70 that I was having a lot of ideas, but I never recorded them.
Okay.
And
I didn't know if you had a stash laying at
I
home.
feel like I got the potential to do it, but I don't want to force it. I'm not promoting anything, but I think it might happen when I'm 80 years old. If Tony Bennett can do it up into his 90s.
Right, there we are.
There you go. Well, thank you, Steve, for coming on the show, and thank you for your time and the history and the stories behind the music.
Yeah.
We're grateful for you to be here, and thank you for coming up to join us.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
Appreciate
awesome. It was really great.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP 989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. Don't forget to look for Mr. Mike's local music live series, posted frequently on MMHP's Facebook hub, as well as Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, Mr. Mike at YouTube at Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1. Brought to you by Michigan Rock and Roll Legends, located both inside the Bay County Historical Museum on Washington Avenue, as well as Scotty's Sandbar on Evergreen Drive at the Bay City Middle Grounds.
On behalf of our hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, this podcast wouldn't have been here without the voice of the MMHP, Mr. Eddie Switek, the generosity of the Bay County Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, as well as this podcast, Mr. Alan Garcia,